By the cosmos decided to dominate Earth, and now they bitterly regret it. The Galactic Dominion had ruled the known universe for over 50,000 years. Their vast fleets had conquered 1,000,000 worlds, each one falling within days of first contact. The pattern was always the same. Arrive, demonstrate overwhelming force, accept surrender, integrate the new world into their empire. It was a system that had never failed. Admiral Zexathara stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Cosmic Terror, watching the blue-green marble of Earth rotate slowly before them. The third planet from a yellow star had caught their attention not for its beauty, but for its defiance. 3 separate diplomatic vessels had been sent to this world, and all 3 had been destroyed. Not captured, not damaged, completely obliterated. "These humans are either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid," muttered Commander Vraktul, his 4 arms adjusting various controls on his command console. "Our intelligence suggests they have barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Their weapons are primitive nuclear fusion at best." Zexathara's scaled face twisted into what passed for a smile among his species. "Perhaps both. But their defiance ends today. Deploy the standard invasion protocol. I want their governments contacted simultaneously. Give them 1 hour to surrender unconditionally." The Dominion's standard first contact protocol was designed to overwhelm and intimidate. Massive holographic projections would appear above every major city on the planet, showing the full might of their fleet. The message was always simple: submit or be destroyed. Most civilizations took less than 10 minutes to surrender once they saw what they were facing. On Earth, the projections materialized exactly as planned. Above New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, and dozens of other major cities, the stern face of Admiral Zexathara appeared in the sky, speaking in perfectly translated local languages. "People of Earth," the projection announced, "I am Admiral Zexathara of the Galactic Dominion. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. You have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. Resist, and your planet will be reduced to ash. This is your only warning." The reaction was not what the Dominion expected. In the emergency session of the United Nations, rather than panic and immediate capitulation, there was heated debate. The Secretary General, Maria Santos, pounded her gavel repeatedly as delegates shouted in multiple languages. "They want us to surrender without even trying to fight?" The Russian ambassador demanded. "My country has faced invasion before. We know how this story ends when we give up without a fight." The Chinese representative nodded grimly. "Our intelligence services have been preparing for this possibility for decades. We have contingency plans." "Contingency plans?" the British ambassador asked incredulously. "They have ships the size of cities floating above us." President Chen Wei of the Global Defense Coalition stood up slowly. "My friends, we need to remember something important. This isn't the first time humanity has faced impossible odds. Our ancestors faced mammoths with nothing but sticks and stones. They survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that should have wiped us out completely. We're still here." In military installations around the globe, a different kind of conversation was taking place. General Rebecca Morrison stood in the Pentagon's deepest bunker, surrounded by screens showing the alien fleet. The numbers were staggering. Over 10,000 ships of various sizes, with the largest being nearly 50 kilometers long. "Analysis?" she asked her chief of staff. "They're confident," Colonel James replied, pulling up tactical displays. "Too confident. Look at their formation. They're not in any kind of defensive posture. They're just hovering there, waiting for us to give up. What about their shielding? That's the interesting part. Our deep space sensors detect energy signatures consistent with deflector shields, but they're not activated. They don't think they need them." General Morrison smiled grimly. "Then we need to show them exactly how wrong they are." Meanwhile, in underground bunkers that officially didn't exist, Dr. Sarah Kim was making final adjustments to humanity's most closely guarded secret. Project Prometheus had been in development for 15 years, ever since the first confirmed detection of alien technology in the outer solar system. "How many do we have ready?" asked Director Walsh, the head of the Black Ops Division. 12 prototypes, Dr. Kim replied, her hands steady despite the magnitude of the moment. Each one represents technology that's theoretically impossible according to known physics, but we've had some very good teachers. She gestured toward a sealed chamber where the remains of the first alien probe to reach Earth were kept. The craft had been shot down over the Pacific in 2157, its wreckage reverse-engineered in facilities that didn't appear on any official records. Their technology assumes certain constants about universal physics, Dr. Kim continued. But they made one critical error. They assumed all species would develop technology the same way they did. Humans don't think like other species. Back on the Cosmic Terror, Admiral Zexathara was growing impatient. The hour was almost up, and there had been no communication from the planet below. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "we're detecting massive electronic activity across their communication networks, but no surrender signal." "Perhaps they need a demonstration," Zexathara mused. He turned to his weapons officer. "Target one of their smaller cities. Something with a population of about 1 million. Fire a single plasma torpedo." The weapons officer hesitated. "Sir, our intelligence suggests they may have families, children." "They had an hour to surrender," Zexathara snapped. "Their suffering is their own choice. Fire!" The plasma torpedo launched from the dreadnought, a ball of contained stellar fire capable of turning a mountain into glass. It streaked toward Earth, aimed at a city in Australia that the Dominion's computers had calculated would provide maximum psychological impact with minimal economic disruption. It never reached the planet. Halfway through its trajectory, the torpedo simply vanished. Not intercepted, not destroyed. It ceased to exist, as if it had never been fired at all. "Report!" Zexathara barked. The weapons officer's face had gone pale. "Sir, the torpedo just disappeared. No explosion, no debris, no energy signature. It's gone." At that moment, every screen on every ship in the Dominion fleet flickered and was replaced by a human face. General Morrison looked directly into the camera, her expression calm, but her eyes burning with determination. "Admiral Zexathara," she said. "This is General Rebecca Morrison, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces. You fired on a city containing innocent civilians. That was your first and last free shot." Zexathara snarled. "Human, you have no idea what you're dealing with. Our fleet could turn your entire world into a cinder." "I'm sure you think that," Morrison replied calmly. "But you've made several critical errors in your assessment. First, you assumed we were primitive. Second, you assumed we were alone. Third, you assumed we would fight fair." "Enough!" Zexathara roared. "All ships, open fire! Destroy everything!" What happened next would be studied in military academies across the galaxy for generations to come. As the Dominion fleet unleashed its full firepower, Earth's response was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The planet didn't have massive shield generators or fleets of warships. Instead, human technology had taken a completely different path. Dr. Kim's Prometheus devices activated, each one creating localized distortions in space-time itself. Every shot fired by the Dominion fleet was caught in these distortions, their energy redirected into parallel dimensions where they harmlessly dissipated. But that was just the defensive phase. Hidden in asteroid belts, disguised as space debris, and buried in the lunar surface, humanity's true weapons activated. They didn't look like weapons at all. They looked like mining equipment, communication satellites, and research stations. The Dominion sensors had dismissed them as insignificant. The first Dominion ship to die was a heavy cruiser on the fleet's outer edge. It simply crumpled inward, its hull collapsing as localized gravity fields increased by a factor of 10,000. The crew didn't even have time to scream. "Sir," the sensor operator called out in panic, "we're detecting massive gravitational anomalies throughout the fleet. Ships are reporting hull breaches from impossible directions." Zexathara watched in horror as his supposedly invincible fleet began to tear itself apart. Some ships were caught in temporal loops, firing on themselves from a few seconds in the future. Others found their own weapons turning against them as human technology hijacked their targeting systems. The humans had spent decades studying every piece of alien technology they could find. They understood how Dominion shields worked, how their weapons functioned, how their computers processed information. More importantly, they had learned to exploit weaknesses that the Dominion didn't even know existed. "This is impossible," Zexathara snarled. "Our technology is based on principles developed over 50 millennia. General Morrison's face reappeared on his screens. "That's your problem, Admiral. You've been using the same playbook for 50,000 years. You've become predictable. Humanity has been at war with itself for its entire existence. We've learned to innovate, to adapt, to think outside conventional parameters. Our fleets have conquered 1,000,000 worlds." Yes, and every one of those worlds fought conventionally. They built bigger guns, stronger shields, faster ships. They played by rules you understood. Morrison's smile was cold as space itself. "We don't believe in rules." As if to prove her point, the largest ship in the Dominion fleet, a planet-killer-class dreadnought, suddenly split in half. Not from external attack, but because human nanobots had infiltrated its hull during the diplomatic meetings months earlier, slowly weakening critical structural points while remaining completely undetectable. The cosmic terror shuddered as similar nanobots began their work on Zexathara's flagship. Emergency klaxons wailed as hull integrity reports showed impossible damage patterns spreading throughout the ship. "Sir," Commander Vrachtel reported, his voice barely controlled, "we've lost 60% of the fleet. The remaining ships are requesting permission to retreat." Zexathara stared at the tactical display showing the systematic destruction of his forces. In less than 20 minutes, the most powerful invasion fleet in galactic history had been reduced to scrap metal and debris, and the humans hadn't fired a single conventional weapon. "Signal general retreat," he ordered, his voice hollow with shock. "All ships, maximum speed back to the nearest Dominion outpost." "I wouldn't do that if I were you," Morrison's voice interrupted. "You see, Admiral, we've been watching your species for quite some time. We know where your outposts are. We know where your homeworlds are. And frankly, after this unprovoked attack on civilians, we're not feeling particularly merciful." The remaining Dominion ships found their jump drives were no longer responding. Human technology had infiltrated their computer systems so thoroughly that the aliens were effectively trapped in Earth's solar system. "What do you want?" Zexathara asked, the fight completely gone out of him. "That's a very good question," Morrison replied, "and we're going to take our time deciding. In the meantime, you and your surviving crew are going to help us understand exactly how your little empire operates. Every world you've conquered, every species you've enslaved, every atrocity you've committed in the name of galactic order." As the battered remnants of the Dominion fleet were herded toward Earth's moon by invisible forces, Admiral Zexathara finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. They hadn't just failed to conquer a primitive world. They had awakened something that had been content to remain hidden in a small corner of the galaxy. Humanity was no longer content to be observers. The cosmos decided to dominate Earth, and now they bitterly regret it. 3 months had passed since the Dominion fleet's catastrophic defeat at Earth. Admiral Zexathara sat in a sterile holding cell on Luna Station, staring at walls that seemed ordinary, but he knew were lined with technology that made escape impossible. The humans had been polite but firm. They wanted information, and they were remarkably good at getting it. The interrogation rooms didn't feel like torture chambers. Dr. Elizabeth Harper, the human xenopsychologist assigned to his case, offered him comfortable seating, food prepared according to his species' dietary requirements, and even entertainment during breaks. It was all very civilized, which somehow made it more terrifying than any Dominion interrogation method. "Tell me about the Valthari system," Dr. Harper said, pulling up holographic displays showing a distant cluster of stars. "Your records indicate you conquered it approximately 800 years ago." Zexathara's jaw tightened. "I will not betray the Dominion." "You're not betraying anyone," Harper replied calmly. "The Dominion abandoned you the moment your fleet was destroyed. Our deep space monitors have detected 3 separate Dominion fleets withdrawing from forward positions. They're retreating to their core systems and leaving their outer territories completely defenseless." The truth of her words stung, because Zexathara knew she was right. Standard Dominion protocol called for immediate withdrawal and containment when faced with an unknown threat. The empire that had ruled for 50,000 years was running scared from a single planet. "The Valthari were a peaceful species," Harper continued. "Highly advanced biotechnology, no military to speak of. Your ships arrived, they surrendered immediately, and you integrated them into your empire. Standard procedure, according to your own records." "Yes," Zexathara admitted. "It was a textbook conquest." "What happened to them after that?" The question seemed innocent enough, but Zexathara had learned to fear Harper's innocent questions. "They were relocated to specialized colonies where their biotechnological expertise could be properly utilized." Harper's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered behind her eyes. "Specialized colonies? You mean labor camps?" "They were given purpose within the Dominion structure." "Admiral, we've been in contact with the Valthari for the past 6 weeks." Zexathara's blood went cold. "That's impossible. Their communication networks were dismantled centuries ago." "Were they?" Harper smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You dismantled their official networks, yes, but the Valthari are a biotechnological species. They communicate through methods your people never even looked for: living networks, organic quantum entanglement, biological information storage systems that your sensors can't detect because they register as natural biological processes." The holographic display changed, showing a real-time communication feed. A Valthari appeared, its tall plant-like form unmistakable. When it spoke, its voice was melodic but filled with pain that had been building for 8 centuries. "Admiral Zexathara," the Valthari said, "I am Keeper Silandra of the Third Grove. Do you remember what you said when our world surrendered?" Zexathara did remember. "I said that your species would find new purpose serving the greater good of galactic civilization." "Yes, and do you remember what that purpose turned out to be?" The Admiral's silence was answer enough. The Valthari had been turned into living computers, their natural ability to store and process information through biological means exploited to create organic data networks for the Dominion. Millions of them had been connected into vast living machines, their consciousness reduced to mere processing power for Dominion bureaucracy. "We remember everything, Admiral," Silandra continued. "Every calculation we were forced to perform, every piece of data we were forced to store, every moment of our stolen lives. And now, thanks to our new human friends, we are free to share those memories." Dr. Harper gestured, and the display showed dozens of other species, all of them former victims of Dominion conquest. The Takari, whose crystalline bodies had been mined like resources. The Kexmari, whose natural ability to manipulate energy fields had been weaponized. The hive mind of Terminus, whose collective consciousness had been shattered and its components used as biological computers. "They all want to talk to you," Harper said quietly. "Every species your empire has enslaved, exploited, or destroyed. And thanks to human technology, we can give them that opportunity." Meanwhile, in the depths of Earth's ocean, Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of humanity's newest creation. The Deep Strike was less a ship than a mobile base of operations, constructed using principles reverse-engineered from a dozen different alien technologies. It was invisible to conventional sensors, undetectable by Dominion technology, and capable of traveling faster than anything in the known galaxy. "Approaching the Rigel system," reported Lieutenant Torres from the navigation station. "Dominion outpost detected on the fourth planet." Chen nodded. "Begin intelligence gathering. I want to know everything about their operations here." The Rigel outpost was typical of Dominion infrastructure. Efficient, heavily defended, and completely unprepared for the kind of warfare humanity had pioneered. The base's shields were designed to stop energy weapons and projectile attacks. They had never been tested against technology that could manipulate time, space, and fundamental forces in ways the Dominion had never imagined. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a signal from the planet's surface. It's not from the Dominion base." "Put it through." The voice that emerged from the speakers was weak but determined. "Unknown ship, this is Resistance Cell 7 of the Cathera Liberation Front. If you're here to fight the Dominion, we can help." Chen smiled grimly. Everywhere they went, the pattern was the same. The Dominion's iron grip was maintained through fear and overwhelming force, but beneath the surface, resistance movements burned on every conquered world. They had just been waiting for someone to show them that the Dominion could be beaten. "Resistance Cell 7, this is Commander Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We're here to help. Can you provide intelligence on Dominion positions?" The response was immediate and eager. "Commander, we've been mapping their operations for decades. We have detailed schematics of their base, guard rotations, communication protocols, everything. But how did you get past their orbital sensors?" "We have our methods," Chen replied. "Stand by for extraction. We'll have your people off-world before the Dominion knows we were here." The extraction of the Cathera resistance was flawless. Human technology allowed the Deep Strike to phase partially out of normal space-time, making it impossible for Dominion sensors to detect or track. The rescued Cathera brought with them intelligence that painted a picture of an empire crumbling from within. "The Dominion has been stretching itself thinner and thinner for centuries," explained Cathera resistance leader Vex High as the ship jumped to their next destination. "They've conquered so many worlds that they can't properly garrison all of them. Most outer territories are held by fear and reputation alone." "And now that reputation is broken," Chen observed. "Exactly. Word is spreading through every conquered system. The mighty Dominion fleet was destroyed by a single planet that most people had never heard of. If Earth can do it, maybe others can too." Back on Luna Station, the interrogations had taken on a new urgency. Human intelligence teams were working around the clock to process information from dozens of liberated species, building a comprehensive picture of Dominion operations across the galaxy. "Admiral," Dr. Harper said during their daily session, "we need to discuss the Dominion's central command structure." Zexathara had grown tired of resistance. Every day brought news of another outer territory falling to human-backed resistance movements. The empire he had served his entire life was collapsing, and there seemed to be nothing anyone could do to stop it. "The Dominion Council rules from Galactic Core Station," he said wearily. 12 species, each representing one of the founding members of the original alliance. The original alliance that became the Dominion through conquest and coercion? "It wasn't supposed to happen that way," Zexathara said quietly. "The alliance was formed to bring peace and stability to the galaxy, but power, Power corrupts everything it touches. Harper leaned forward. Then help us uncorrupt it. Give us the information we need to end this without more bloodshed. You want to attack Core Station? That's impossible. It's protected by quantum shields, spatial distortions, and the largest fleet in the galaxy. Admiral, 3 months ago you thought it was impossible for a primitive planet to destroy your invasion fleet. We've learned not to put too much stock in the word impossible. The truth was that humanity had been preparing for this moment since the first alien contact. Dr. Kim's team had been working on something they called Project Excalibur, a weapon system designed specifically to take out heavily fortified positions that were supposedly impregnable. In a hidden facility beneath the Antarctic ice, the final preparations were being made. Project Excalibur wasn't a conventional weapon at all. It was a device that could manipulate the fundamental constants of physics within a localized area, essentially creating regions where the laws of nature operated according to human-designed parameters rather than universal constants. Final systems check, Dr. Kim announced to her team. Remember, we only get one shot at this. If it doesn't work, the Dominion will know we're coming. The device looked surprisingly simple. A metallic sphere about the size of a basketball covered in crystalline formations that seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury. Inside that sphere was technology that represented the pinnacle of human achievement, built on principles that no other species in the galaxy had even imagined possible. All systems green, reported the lead technician. Excalibur is ready for deployment. Phase 1 of humanity's counterattack had been the liberation of outer territories and the gathering of intelligence. Phase 2 had been the systematic dismantling of Dominion supply lines and communication networks. Phase 3 was about to begin. General Morrison stood in the command center, surrounded by displays showing the positions of human forces throughout the galaxy. In just 3 months, they had gone from a single planet to a network of operations spanning dozens of star systems. Every liberated world became a base of operations. Every freed species became an ally in the fight against Dominion tyranny. All units report ready, announced Colonel James. Operation Revelation is a go. Morrison nodded. Begin Phase 3. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity can do when we put our minds to it. Across the galaxy, the Dominion's outer territories experienced simultaneous uprisings. But these weren't random rebellions. They were carefully coordinated strikes supported by human technology and intelligence. Dominion bases that had stood for centuries fell within hours. Supply convoys disappeared without a trace. Communication networks went dark. On the bridge of the Deep Strike, Commander Chen watched as another Dominion stronghold crumbled before the combined assault of human technology and alien resistance forces. Sir, Lieutenant Torres reported, we're receiving surrender offers from Dominion commanders in 12 different systems. Accept them all, Chen ordered. But make it clear that surrender means full cooperation in documenting their war crimes. No one gets a free pass for following orders. The message was spreading through Dominion ranks like wildfire. Resistance was futile, not against the humans, but for the humans. The species that had seemed so primitive and helpless was systematically dismantling the greatest empire in galactic history, and they were doing it with a precision and efficiency that was both terrifying and admirable. Admiral Zexathara watched the reports coming in on the screens in his cell. System after system falling to human-led coalitions. Entire fleets surrendering rather than face Earth's mysterious weapons. The empire that had ruled for 50 millennia was crumbling in a matter of months. Still think we can't reach Core Station? Dr. Harper asked, joining him at the viewing screen. Zexathara turned to look at her, seeing something in her expression that he had missed before. It wasn't just determination or intelligence. It was the look of someone who had been planning for this moment for a very long time. How long have you known about us? he asked quietly. Harper smiled. Longer than you might think, Admiral, and shorter than you might fear. But that's a conversation for another day. Right now, we need to talk about ending this war before more people die. The Dominion Council will never surrender. Then we'll have to convince them. And, Admiral, when it comes to persuasion, humans can be very creative. The cosmos decided to dominate Earth, and now they bitterly regret it. Galactic Core Station had been the heart of Dominion power for 20,000 years. Built inside a hollowed-out moon and surrounded by the densest concentration of defensive systems in known space, it was considered absolutely impregnable. The station's quantum shields could deflect the energy output of an entire star. Its spatial distortion fields made it impossible to approach using conventional faster-than-light travel, and the massive fleet protecting it consisted of the Dominion's most advanced warships, crewed by their most elite warriors. High Chancellor Mordain stood in the station's central command chamber, his 6 eyes focused on tactical displays showing the collapse of the outer territories. In the past 6 months, humanity had systematically dismantled an empire that had taken 50,000 years to build. Every week brought news of more surrenders, more defections, more worlds declaring independence from Dominion rule. "Status report," he demanded, his voice carrying the authority of absolute power. Fleet Admiral Kexvar bowed his massive head. 63 outer systems have fallen to human-backed coalitions. Our supply lines from the Rim territories have been completely severed. Intelligence reports suggest the humans are using some form of technology we cannot detect or counter. What of our spies? What have they learned about human capabilities? That's the problem, Chancellor. We have no spies in human space. Every attempt to infiltrate their systems has failed. They seem to know we're coming before we even launch the missions. High Chancellor Mordain's scaled fist slammed onto the command console. 50,000 years of expansion, 50,000 years of careful conquest and integration, and it's all being undone by one primitive planet. How is this possible? The answer came from an unexpected source. A new voice echoed through the command chamber, speaking with calm authority despite the impossibility of its presence. "Because you never learned the most important lesson in the universe," said General Morrison, her image appearing on every screen in the facility. "Evolution beats stagnation every time." Security alarms wailed throughout the station as the impossible became reality. Somehow, humanity had penetrated the most secure facility in Dominion space. "Impossible," breathed Chancellor Mordain. "Our shields, our defenses, are all based on technology that's 20,000 years old," Morrison replied. "You've been using the same principles, the same approaches, the same thinking for so long that you've forgotten how to adapt. Humanity has been at war with itself for its entire existence. We've never had the luxury of stagnation." Throughout the station, Dominion personnel watched in shock as human soldiers materialized in corridors that should have been completely secure. But these weren't conventional troops. They moved through walls as if they weren't there, appeared and disappeared at will, and carried weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. In the station's detention levels, something even more shocking was happening. Cell doors that had been sealed for centuries were opening, and the prisoners within were not what anyone expected. They were Dominion officials, scientists, and military officers who had been imprisoned for the crime of questioning the Empire's methods. "Sub-Admiral Feltani," said Dr. Harper, as she released a tall, crystalline being from a cell that had held her for over 300 years. "My name is Dr. Elizabeth Harper. Representing the Human Defense Coalition, we've come to offer you a choice." Feltani stared at the human woman with eyes that held centuries of pain. "What kind of choice?" "The choice to help us build something better than what the Dominion has become. We've read your files, Sub-Admiral. You were imprisoned for suggesting that conquered species should be treated as equals rather than slaves. for proposing that the Dominion could rule through cooperation instead of fear. Those ideas were branded as treason by a government that was terrified of change. But things are changing whether they like it or not. The question is whether that change will be guided by wisdom or chaos. Throughout Core Station, similar conversations were taking place. Dominion personnel who had been silenced, imprisoned, or exiled for their progressive ideas were being contacted by human operatives. A shadow network of reform-minded individuals that the Dominion leadership never knew existed was being activated. In the Central Command Chamber, Chancellor Mordain was discovering just how thoroughly human intelligence had penetrated Dominion society. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're losing contact with security stations throughout the facility. It appears that a significant portion of our own personnel are actively assisting the humans." "That's impossible. These people have sworn oaths of loyalty to the Dominion's ideals," came another voice. And Chancellor Mordain turned to see Sub-Admiral Feltani entering the command chamber, flanked by dozens of officers he thought had been completely loyal. Not to its current leadership. Mordain's hand moved toward his sidearm, but he found himself unable to complete the motion. One of the humans had appeared beside him, her touch somehow paralyzing his nervous system without causing any apparent injury. "Please don't make this harder than it has to be," said Dr. Harper. "We're not here to destroy the Dominion. We're here to save it." "Save it?" Mordain snarled. "You're tearing apart everything we've built." "We're tearing apart everything you've corrupted," Feltani corrected. "The Dominion was supposed to be a force for peace and stability. Instead, it became a machine for oppression and exploitation. You've had your chance to rule the galaxy. Now it's time for someone else to try." The screens throughout the command chamber lit up with images from across the galaxy. But instead of showing the chaos and destruction that Mordain expected, they displayed scenes of celebration, freed slaves embracing their liberators, former enemies working together to rebuild devastated worlds, species that had been at each other's throats for millennia sitting down at negotiating tables. "This is what the galaxy looks like when it's not held together by fear," Morrison explained. "Amazing what people can accomplish when they're not spending all their energy just trying to survive." Admiral Kexvar stepped forward, his massive form towering over the humans. "And what happens to those of us who served the old regime? Are we to be executed as war criminals?" "That depends," Harper replied. "Are you willing to help us document the truth about what the Dominion has done? Are you prepared to face the consequences of your actions and work to make amends where possible?" Kexvar considered this for a long moment. "I have served this empire for over 800 years. I have conquered worlds, enslaved species, and committed acts that I told myself were necessary for the greater good. If given the chance, I would try to undo some of that harm. Then you'll have that chance. We're not interested in revenge, Admiral. We're interested in justice. And justice requires truth, accountability, and the opportunity for redemption." Across the galaxy, the same conversations were happening on every Dominion world. Human-backed coalitions weren't just conquering territories. They were offering something that had been missing from galactic politics for 50,000 years: hope. On the former slave world of Kepler Prime, Valthari biotechnologists were working alongside human scientists to develop medical treatments that could heal centuries of genetic damage caused by forced labor. On the mineral-rich planets of the Outer Rim, species that had been strip-mining their own worlds were learning sustainable technologies that would allow them to rebuild their ecosystems. But the most profound changes were happening in the realm of ideas. The Dominion had maintained control through a philosophy of rigid hierarchy, where some species were inherently superior to others and conquest was the natural order of the universe. Humanity was proving that cooperation could be more powerful than domination, that diversity was a source of strength rather than weakness. How did you do it? Chancellor Mordain asked, his voice hollow with defeat. How did one world accomplish what no alliance in galactic history has managed? Morrison smiled, but there was sadness in her expression. We had the best teacher possible. We learned from you. From us. From your mistakes. Every conquest you made, every species you enslaved, every world you devastated, we studied all of it. We learned what happens when power becomes an end unto itself instead of a means to protect and serve others. We saw what the galaxy looked like under your rule, and we decided we could do better. Dr. Harper pulled up a holographic display showing human ships throughout Dominion space, but these weren't warships in the traditional sense. They were mobile hospitals, engineering platforms, communication hubs, and research stations. Every human vessel was designed not to destroy but to build. We've been preparing for this moment for decades, Harper explained. Not just preparing to fight you, but preparing for what would come after. Every contingency, every possible outcome, every challenge we might face in rebuilding galactic civilization from scratch. We didn't just plan to win a war. We planned to win a peace. Admiral Zexathara, who had been brought to Core Station to witness the end of his empire, spoke for the first time in hours. What happens now? To the Dominion? To its people? To everything we built? Now we build something better, replied Feltani. A galactic federation based on consent rather than conquest. A government that serves its citizens rather than ruling them. A civilization that grows through cooperation rather than domination. And if some species refuse to participate? If they choose to remain independent? Morrison shrugged. Then they remain independent. The whole point is that it's their choice. We're not building another empire, Sub-Admiral. We're building a community. In the months that followed, the galaxy began to change in ways that would have been unimaginable under Dominion rule. Trade networks formed based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation. Scientific research accelerated as species shared knowledge freely instead of hoarding it. Art, culture, and philosophy flourished as beings were free to explore ideas that had been suppressed for millennia. There were challenges, of course. Some Dominion loyalists attempted to establish rogue states in remote systems. Criminal organizations tried to fill power vacuums left by the Empire's collapse. Ancient ethnic and territorial disputes resurged on worlds where the Dominion's iron fist had been the only thing preventing civil war. But for every problem that arose, human-backed coalitions had solutions ready. Diplomatic corps trained in negotiation rather than intimidation. Economic advisors who understood sustainable development instead of resource extraction. Military forces designed to protect rather than conquer. The transformation wasn't instant, and it wasn't perfect, but it was hopeful in a way that the galaxy hadn't experienced in living memory. A year after the fall of Core Station, Admiral Zexathara stood in the observation deck of what was now called Unity Station. The facility had been completely rebuilt. Its weapons replaced with research laboratories, its detention centers converted into schools and hospitals. Regrets? Asked Dr. Harper, joining him at the massive viewport that looked out over the bustling activity of the galaxy's new capital. Zexathara watched as ships from dozens of different species docked peacefully at the station's numerous ports. Many. I spent my entire life serving an empire that I thought was bringing order to the galaxy. Instead, we were bringing only suffering. The past can't be changed, Harper replied, but the future is still being written, and every day you have the opportunity to write a better page. Below them, in the station's central plaza, a remarkable sight was taking place. Representatives from hundreds of different species were gathered for the weekly General Assembly, debating issues of galactic governance through peaceful discussion rather than military might. It was messy, chaotic, and often frustrating. It was also beautiful. Thank you, Zexathara said quietly. For what? for showing us that there was a better way, for proving that strength doesn't have to mean domination, that unity doesn't require conquest. He paused, watching as a group of children from different species played together in the plaza below. For giving us hope, Dr. Harper smiled. The cosmos decided to dominate Earth, but what they discovered was that Earth had already been dominated by the idea that differences make us stronger, not weaker, that cooperation can achieve more than competition, that the universe is big enough for everyone to find their place in it. And now? Now we get to see what the galaxy can accomplish when everyone works together instead of against each other. It's going to be an interesting future. As if to prove her point, an announcement echoed through the station. A new star system had been discovered, one that showed signs of intelligent life. But instead of preparing invasion fleets, the galactic community was organizing first contact teams designed to offer friendship and cooperation. The age of conquest was over. The age of exploration had begun. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, other civilizations were beginning to receive strange signals from a distant galaxy, messages of hope, offers of friendship, and invitations to join something larger than themselves. The cosmos had tried to dominate Earth and failed spectacularly. Now Earth was showing the cosmos what it meant to truly rule, not through fear and force, but through inspiration and example. The humans had won more than a war. They had won the future.